Hey there everyone, this is KT. Today I'd like to show you guys how I was the first person to catch a shiny Beldum in a Premier Ball using the Latios Battle Tower glitch. This video is going to be in two parts. The first section we're going to be discussing how I came to this idea, and the second section I'm going to be showing you steps you can take so you can catch a Pokemon in a different ball. So the origin for abusing this glitch, which I've dubbed the record mix recatch method. This goes back to around September. I was watching a friend of mine, Riley, who was streaming his 100 wins shiny streak in the Ruby Sapphire Tower.
Oh my god, Alpha Booza. Use a regular shiny Suicune up until over 50, mix your records, fight yourself, catch it with the glitch. Motive. I know you have a shiny Suicune. You gotta find out for us, buddy. Does that work? Would that work? Oh my god, that would be cool. KT, you wonder if they lower the IVs for record mixed Pokemon? If they don't, what Alpha Booza just said would be a great way of turning your, like, if you do a shiny roamer, right, and it has bad IVs, and then you catch that shiny using the shiny glitch. I don't know. I think that's the way to do it.
So we started to wonder how this is actually going to work, whether your IVs get scaled to what they would be at that point in the tower. As the tower scales the IVs, they start low and then end at 31 IV by the time you're at 49 wins. Another important aspect is the natures are randomized in the Ruby and Sapphire Tower. This is not how it works in Emerald, but in Ruby and Sapphire, the natures are just picked at random. So we could potentially re-roll the nature for our shiny Pokemon on top of getting one with 31 IVs. I made it my goal to catch this, to see what would happen, and as it turns out, when you do this, you spawn a bad egg, because the TID and SID do not match. Interesting to note is if you were to catch just a random Pokemon from the tower, that would work. You would get them. They would have perfect IVs, because their TID and SID matches the player. However, for a record mix Pokemon, they retain their TID and SID from when they were caught. So a bit bummed out we couldn't do this for just any old shiny. I started to wonder, would this work if I was recatching my own shiny? Because the TID and SID should check out. And luckily enough, I had this shiny Jigglypuff I could use as a test subject. And as you can see, no bad egg. This does work. So this now opens up the opportunity to recatch a Pokemon in a ball they normally wouldn't be able to be caught in. Let's take Chansey as an example. Chansey, you can get it in the Safari Zone, and you can get it in an egg. You can hatch it from an egg. I think there's a Blissey in XD, but let's ignore that for now. So that's all you got, a Pokeball and a Safari Ball. But using this method, you could potentially catch it in any ball that you like. And as shiny hunters do like to ball match, we like to get a ball that has an equivalent color to the Pokemon. This opens up the opportunity for Pokemon like Eevee, other gift Pokemon, any of the baby Pokemon, certain weird cases like Mr. Mime and Farfetch'd, Pokemon that normally are always in a Pokeball and that's it. This new method became a fascination of mine, and after a very short hunt for a shiny Beldum,
guys, we got it. We got the Beldum. After a mere 9,099 resets.
So with shiny Beldum in hand, I set out to be the first person to recatch my own shiny in a Premier Ball. So here we have step 1 of the record mix recatch method. You can see my name here, Mokomichi, and we take a look at our shiny Beldum. This is the file I caught it on. It's Mokomichi. So, what we're going to do is we're going to trade over to my other Japanese Sapphire here. We trade this shiny Beldum over to Amuro. So now we've successfully traded a Pokemon with our TID and SID match, but it's on a different file, which is important. Now that it's on Amuro, when I record mix with Amuro, he has one of my Pokemon. So here you can see I'm record mixing between Mokomichi and Amuro. These are my two Japanese sapphires. Now everything's set into place. My recently acquired shiny Beldum is in my tower because I traded it and then record mixed with the file I traded it to. So here we're going to do a quick little montage just to get to round 3, which is where the shiny Beldum team is. Now all I need to do is intentionally lose, and I can run into this Beldum via the Latios glitch. Now I've tracked down my Lati and everything is in place. All I need to do now is the catch. And if you know Beldum, here's the hard part. Beldum doesn't have a great catch rate. He's on par with a legendary. So the catch part is actually quite difficult. I specifically brought 2 Smeargles. This first one, who's level 100, he's got Mean Look, Trick, Barrier, and Baton Pass. This is to max out my defense as well as to trap the Beldum from fleeing. I then switch to this second Smeargle, who has Spore, as well as he's holding a Shell Bell, which I can then trick onto Beldum. The reason I wanted to use a Shell Bell instead of Leftovers is so that Beldum would heal itself when it lands a struggle turn. It's not going to heal itself while it's asleep, which is what would happen if I was to just give it Leftovers. This second Smeargle was used for a separate shiny hunt. These other moves are Sunny Day and False Swipe. These don't come into play. We didn't use these for this encounter. And during my test encounters, this took quite a while. I did 3 and I failed all of them, and the first time that I tried, I was streaming, and that just so happened to be the one where I catch Beldum. What do you know? 15 balls. And there it is. I did it. I caught a shiny Beldum in a Premier Ball. I believe the only way you can get a shiny Metagross in a different ball is in Colosseum, because in Colosseum you encounter him as a shadow, so you can catch him in any ball. However, for Beldum and Metang, there's no option. There's just the gift Pokemon and eggs. So I hope seeing this has inspired someone else to try this method, the record mix reclaim method, as I've been calling it. And now I'm going to teach you how to do it. So step 1 is your preparation. You're going to need 2 copies of Ruby or Sapphire. It doesn't matter which, you can use 2 Sapphires. I use 2 Japanese Sapphires in this example. The important thing though is that they need to be in the same region. A Japanese Ruby is not going to record mix with an English Sapphire, so have 2 games in the same region. You're also going to need 2 Game Boys, you're going to need a link cable, the usual hardware stuff. You're also going to need to have both games in the post game. They need to have beaten the Elite Four and have access to the Battle Tower. This one's very important. You need the roaming Lati. If you have caught the roaming Lati, this doesn't work. You need to have the Lati. So now, the most time-consuming step, you're going to need to catch a shiny Pokemon on either of these 2 games. The TID and SID for when the shiny is caught must match the players. You have to have it from here. You can't just take any shiny and stick it into Ruby. That's not going to work. It has to be from Ruby. Once you've acquired your shiny, you trade it to your friend. Then, on your friend's Battle Tower, you need to lose. It doesn't matter where you lose, but the earlier the better, because it's easier for you to just jump in, lose to that fight, and then activate the Lati. If you want to grind all the way up to 99 wins just to do this, hey, feel free. It's important to note when you're playing your friend's file, you cannot have your shiny Pokemon in the first slot. This gets overwritten by the roaming Latios. So your shiny that you want to catch has to be in slot 2 or slot 3. Once you've lost on your friend's file, then you need to record mix with yourself. So you finish record mixing, you head back to the Battle Tower on your game, you play until you reach your trainer that you record mixed with, and you intentionally lose. You need to lose this fight. At this point, we're really just doing the Latios Battle Tower glitch. The game is in a weird state because you lost your last match, but immediately encountered a Lati, and the Lati stores parts of the game's data weird. So because of that, you encounter the Lati, and you are in his fight, but the game thinks that you're still in the previous trainer fight, so the first slot does not work. It's important to know that the encounter with your Pokemon still follows the rules of a Lati. So if you don't use Mean Look and you don't have an Arena Trap Pokemon, they will flee. At this point, it's just a regular catch. It's a little cool to be able to catch an Eevee or a starter, a Pokemon you normally wouldn't be able to, but really the game is just playing by its usual rules. And that concludes my guide on the record mix recatch method. I hope this video has inspired someone else to attempt this. I would love to see if anyone else has done this. And if you have, please let me know. I really do want to see someone else attempt this. This video was a lot of fun to make, and I appreciate you watching.